Welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. We're glad to have you with us for this panel on the economics of dark sky communities. Now, as many of you likely know, places where the night skies are free from light pollution have become increasingly popular places for tourism. So in this session, we'll explore what it means to be a dark sky friendly community. We'll delve into the economic benefits of astro-tourism, and we'll highlight a variety of night sky conservation efforts and tips for you to try in your own community. My name is Cassidy Jones. I am the Outreach and Engagement Manager for the Southwest region of the National Parks Conservation Association, or NPCA. Now, of course, night skies are a key park value of the national park sites in the Four Corners states. And so NPCA is very pleased to be sponsoring this session. Now, in today's conversation, I'm joined by two experts on this topic, Crystal White and Flint Timmons. Crystal White is the owner of Moab Astronomy Tours, and she's been a naturalist for 17 years and an amateur astronomer for 14 years. She was recently selected as a NASA Solar System Ambassador, volunteering with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and receives intense training from scientists and engineers throughout NASA's network of centers. Her true passion in life lies in conserving our view of the universe and keeping the dark sky clear for everyone to draw inspiration from and enjoyment from. She has accomplished this goal through her works with the International Dark Sky Association, the Colorado Plateau Dark Sky Cooperative, Friends of Arches and Canyonland Parks, and Moab Dark Skies. Welcome, Crystal.
Thanks, Cassidy. Glad to be here.
And next we have Flint Timmons. He's a destination development specialist with the Utah Office of Tourism, where he assists local governments to develop the amenities, infrastructure, and leadership necessary to become welcoming destinations for visitors. He previously worked for the state's Division of Housing and Community Development, where he conducted rural research, provided local government planning assistance, and supported the division's infrastructure funding programs. Flint graduated with a master's degree in public administration from the Romney Institute of Public Management at Brigham Young University. Thanks for being here, Flint.
Thanks, Cassidy. Glad to be here. Hello, everyone.
Great. Let's get started. Crystal, if you would begin, I'd love to create some groundwork for the audience today. Can you just please describe what a dark sky place is for us?
Yeah, sure. The International Dark Sky Association created the International Dark Sky Places program in 2001 to encourage communities, parks, and protected areas around the world to preserve and protect dark sites through responsible lighting policy and through public education. And so now there are certified sites all around the world. These are communities, parks, reserves, sanctuaries, and urban night sky places that have all received certification. In 2007, Natural Bridges National Monument was the first park and first international dark sky place in Utah. And it's been followed by Hovenweep National Monument, Canyonlands National Park, Arches National Park, Dead Horse Point State Park. There's Antelope Island State Park. There's a lot of different parks. North Fork Park up in Weber County. So yeah, that's pretty much what a dark sky place is.
Fantastic. Lots in Utah. So tell us a little bit more about the tourism side of dark sky places. So who's visiting these places and how do they experience a dark sky?
Yeah, sure. We have quite a variety and a diverse group that comes out to enjoy the night skies here in Utah. Lots of families and friends traveling together, trying to find a dark sky place where they can have a unique experience, something that they don't get back home, and form some beautiful memories together. And then we also get amateur astronomers that just want to see deep space objects through their telescope from a dark sky place, a Bortle Scale 2 site. which is the first level of the darkest. Bortle scale 1 is basically you have no light pollution. So most of the skies in southern Utah are Bortle scale 2 or 3. And you also get astrophotographers who are drawn to southeastern Utah and southern Utah for the beautiful landscapes. And getting that sweeping view of the Milky Way over the night sky with, an arch in the foreground or some high conifers, it's quite epic and iconic. And so they come here for that reason.
Fantastic. So to continue on the tourism front, Flint, could you share with us a little bit more about astro-tourism?
Yeah. Astro-tourism is the term we use for the activities involving the night sky. So Crystal just named a lot of those activities. And so astro-tourism occurs when you have a visitor engaging in those activities in your region. They become an astro-tourist. Sometimes we also call it dark sky tourism. Sometimes you'll have visitors who engage only in astro-tourism. That's the main point of their trip, but sometimes that's something that they'll add on to something else that may not be their primary focus in the trip, but it's an added benefit and something that they're looking for. And Utah is really one of the top destinations in the entire world for astro-tourism.
Excellent. Could you say a little bit more about that? I think folks would like to know just how Utah and the Colorado Plateau are really well situated for the astro-tourism market.
Sure, yeah. Utah is definitely one of the better places in not only the United States, but the entire world for astro-tourism activities. In North America, due to increased light pollution, more than 80% of North Americans can't see the Milky Way from their homes. And so it's sort of becoming a lost treasure. However, when you look at some of these maps that depict lights at night, you'll see that there is a lot of dark space in and around Utah and the Colorado Plateau. And so what's more, Utah, as Crystal mentioned, has done a lot to protect the night skies in various places around the state. Many of the national and state parks and monuments are dark sky protected places. A lot of these are in southern Utah and in some of our wilderness areas, but you can also find them in some of our more urban areas. As Crystal mentioned, Antelope State Park in the Great Salt Lake, which is just minutes from our state capital, as well as North Fork Park in Weber County, which is just a stone's throw away from the city of Ogden. So these dark sky places are really becoming increasingly rare due to light pollution, and Utah, due to our protection efforts as well as our great expanses, has really become a haven for dark skies and astro-tourism. The Colorado Plateau, which encompasses not only the southeastern part of Utah, but parts of Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, has really become one of the preeminent dark sky places in the world. Those 4 states and a lot of the entities within them have done a lot to protect this natural resource of the dark skies due to the low populations and wide areas, as well as that proactive management of the night sky. It's really becoming one of the last bastions for dark skies in the world. And Utah, as I've mentioned, is right at the forefront. It often jockeys back and forth with Arizona to be the leader in dark sky protected places. And so when it comes to astro-tourism, Utah is top of the list.
Thanks, Flint. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's see if we can keep Utah at the top of that list. We've already got a lot of communities and places that are designated as dark sky kind of focus and friendly. And what should we do to keep that going? Crystal, can you tell us what a community should know as they consider really touting their dark skies and focusing on astro-tourism?
Yeah, some advice I have for communities that want to highlight their dark skies would be to ask yourselves this series of questions, which first of all is our community lighting affecting our night sky resource? And if so, like what steps and measures can we take to decrease that? Second would be, does your community want to attract these tourists? Third, Do we have the lodging, the restaurants, the grocery stores, the gas stations that will be needed to support the level of astrotourists that we're hoping to draw in? And then, what kind of astro tourists do we want to attract? Do we want the astrophotographers? Do we want all of them? And if so, like, what areas in our community do we want to highlight? What's the best ways to market those areas? And what are areas that are a little more sensitive that we probably need to think about not highlighting? And once you ask yourself all those questions, it kind of gives you a good layout for moving ahead.
That's fantastic advice. Thanks for that list, Crystal. Flint, how about you? Do you have any thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think cities and communities and businesses really need to think about the work that they are willing to do to preserve dark skies. Dark skies are best thought of as a natural resource, just like the landscape or a waterway is a natural resource. And sometimes through inaction or not making the right decisions, we can squander that resource and sort of taint it for future use. And dark skies are the same. Through certain lighting practices and development practices, we can eliminate that resource through sky glow and light pollution. The upside of that is that light pollution is easily reversed as long as we take those necessary steps. So I think businesses and communities that really feel like they would like to highlight their dark skies and promote them really need to be intentional about the steps they take to protect those dark skies through lighting ordinances at a city level, through the actual infrastructure and apparatus that they put in buildings and other practices. It's something that we have to proactively manage.
Excellent perspective. Thank you. And let's sort of stay on that point in terms of astrotourism, but we'll shift gears just slightly. Certainly lots of terrific opportunities for astrotourism, but there's this larger landscape right now of the fact that we're kind of in the midst of this global pandemic. So what can you tell us about COVID-19 and travel trends, how that may be affecting astrotourism and just tourism more broadly? We'd really appreciate your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the COVID-19 pandemic has really impacted a lot of industries across the world, and in Utah, in the tourism and hospitality sector have been especially hard hit. Naturally, we typically experience millions of visitors, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry in the state. And with shutdowns and travel restrictions and just natural fear of infection and spreading the virus, travel has slowed down in big ways here in Utah. However, the bright side to that is we see that there are signs that people are still willing to travel. They're just changing their habits. People are still anxious to go out and enjoy the outdoors. And I'm sure many in our audience have experienced that personally as they've gone out and seen the big crowds. People are ready to recreate. People are ready to connect with nature and go and have the experiences. However, as I mentioned, they are doing that differently in ways that they didn't in the past. For one, international tourism has gone way down due to travel restrictions and people really being discouraged from flying. And so what we're seeing is an uptick in domestic tourism. So those are people in state and in country traveling around. What research is showing is that many folks are comfortable with traveling by car to somewhere where they can get within most likely a day's drive. So, about 700 miles or so radius from where they live. And so that opens up a lot of opportunities for people, especially here in Utah and surrounding Utah, to go to some of these wilderness areas where they can drive in their own vehicle and they're not dependent on somebody else's equipment or somebody else's timetable. They are able to go where and when they want at that time. We also see that people are enjoying the outdoors for that social distancing aspect. It's easy to be apart from other folks. It's easy to find your distance. and sort of find an area all to yourself, or hope to find an area all to yourself. So that again plays into Utah's favor with so many of our wide open public lands and wilderness areas that are really prime for people to go and have a private moment. Obviously, there are some areas where that congestion still occurs, but there are a lot of other areas, particularly away from the cities, where that can still happen. We're also seeing that people are more likely to camp or RV rather than stay in hotels. However, we are still seeing that people are not shying away from hotels. We anecdotally hear a lot of reports of primarily in our premier destinations of still being full on particularly over busy weekends and holidays. So people are still traveling, people are still staying in hotels. And I think astro-tourism can be a really great solution to some of these issues associated with the pandemic. A recent study came out that forecasted that astro-tourism on the Colorado Plateau could be worth up to $6 billion over the next 10 years and generate hundreds of thousands of jobs in that same time frame. People are looking for the dark skies, and they will flock to those opportunities, especially as we make those opportunities known for them. Another benefit of astro-tourism is it typically happens at night, requiring overnight stays, and it's a pretty time tested that overnight visitors typically spend about 3 times more than day visitors only. And not only that, but it provides visitors a different opportunity to experience the same community and the same surroundings in a different way. They can have an entirely different experience from day to night. And that's something that's new, that's attractive to repeat visitors, as well as encouraging first-time visitors to stay longer and ultimately spend more and form a deeper relationship with the community, so that hopefully they will become a higher quality visitor in the future.
Thank you so much, Flint. You've got such a deep knowledge in that space. I'm sure it's something folks are thinking about a whole lot, no matter what side of sort of the industry or tourism or conservation element of night skies and public lands. I appreciate that. I'm curious to know if you've got any kind of specific tips or sort of considerations for folks about traveling responsibly right now.
Yeah, I think for visitors, people who are hoping to travel responsibly, we need to be respectful of local ordinances and laws and desires, and really consider, what does the community want? When we are visitors, we're essentially guests in that person's community. And so just as you would want somebody to be respectful when they visit your home, visitors need to be respectful when they visit another community. So even though you may, in your area, may not have certain restrictions, such as what businesses can be open or what occupancy a restaurant can be at, we need to respect those local decisions in the places we visit and be respectful of their needs, whether that's wearing masks and other personal protective equipment, or honoring those occupancy requirements or something like that. We also need to just be respectful in the ways that we would normally be, as far as not littering the landscape and causing disturbances to the natural landscape or to local communities with noise or light violations, as well as being sure that we are respectful of local businesses. I know an interesting thing we saw in this pandemic was in a lot of resort communities across the country, a lot of out-of-town visitors would come and buy up a lot of the merchandise at local stores, which was helpful to spur spending, but it resulted in a lack of goods for full-time residents. And so we need to find a balance there of respecting the need to spend money in these communities and support local businesses, but also finding ways to support local residents as well, and making sure that as visitors we can be a benefit and not a burden.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Flint. Let's shift gears once again. We've talked a lot about astro-tourism and dark sky places, potentially $6 billion industry for the state of Utah coming up here. So let's talk now about sort of the most basic asset for allowing all those things to happen, which is sort of clear, dark night skies. So let's help our listeners sort of understand how to protect these assets. What is your very best advice for protecting the night skies? Let's start with you, Crystal.
Yeah, in order to protect the natural darkness around our homes and communities, I think first we have to start beginning to change the way we think about light. If you go back to the beginning of life on Earth, billions of years ago, all life on Earth adapted to this natural cycle of light and dark. And those cycles created biorhythms in all life on Earth, including us humans. And these can easily get disturbed by artificial light at night. So really, we have, we've only had exterior lighting for about the last 200 years. And it takes thousands of years, 10,000 years for lasting physiological adaptations to take place. So life just hasn't had time to adapt to artificial light at night. And so I kind of present a little challenge for everyone at home or listening to this today to kind of just take a look at the lights around their homes and their businesses and ask yourself these questions. Do you need the light where it is, first of all? And if so, how much intensity of light do you need? Can you reduce the wattage and still have the light be effective for you? Or do you need to have it bright? Do you need it on all the time? Can you put it on a timer or sensor? And then also, can you change the color temperature? Because if you think about, again, life adapting to natural cycles, our rods kick in at night, and the reason for that is sunset. If you look at sunset colors, they're oranges and reds. That's the signal for our bodies to switch into nighttime mode and to relax and to rest and to recover. And so using those colors in our outdoor lighting actually helps the ecosystems around us as well as our own health. Is the light directed downward where it's actually going to be useful? That's kind of a huge thing. If it's not directed downward, then that's a problem. It's wasted energy, right? Going up into the night sky, up into space. And that's usually created with non-renewable energy sources. So we need to be mindful of how we're using those sources. Also, if you're really into conserving the night sky, you can join IDA. There's lots of local chapters in most states across the US now. You can check out to see if you have a local dark sky conservation group. Like here in Moab, Utah, we have Moab Dark Skies, and we work on a lot of conservation education. You can also help with a lot of citizen science efforts. There's a great effort called Globe at Night, and you just put in a little app on your smartphone. You go out and you look at a constellation and you tell them how many stars you can see in that constellation. There's also one called Meteor Counters, which is very similar. It's trying to see how dark your area is by how many meteors you can count. And there are a lot more opportunities out there for citizen science. And I think for communities, it would be if you really value your night skies and you really want to make a change in preserving it, the first step is doing a lighting inventory to find out, which areas of your city have the worst lighting. The unshielded lights that glare and are really effective in creating sky glow. And then from there, it's actually looking at your outdoor lighting code and making adjustments to protect the night sky through using shielding and color temperature and things like that.
Fantastic. Such a great list of resources, Crystal. We'll certainly be sharing that a little bit later in today's program so folks can jot things down and go do some exploring. But Flint, before we kind of move on, tell me if you've got any thoughts about protecting the night skies.
Yeah, I think Crystal presented a lot of great ideas about how we can protect the night skies. And I think, when we look at it from a tourism destination or a business standpoint, again, these can be a very helpful natural resource for our businesses to encourage more astrotourism in these areas, and we need to protect that resource. But one way we can help protect that resource is by incorporating it properly and respectfully into some of our tourism and destination offerings, so that we can help our visitors meet the dark sky and fall in love with it and spur their own efforts to protect it and be respectful. So some of those ways that we can engage in astrotourism and protect the night sky at the same time is, again, by being intentional about it and incorporating some of the lore of dark skies and astronomy into some of our business offerings. So for instance, guides and outfitters could learn stories and legends and constellations and a little bit of astronomy that they can share with their guests on overnight experiences, and incorporate that into, whether that's a multi-day rafting trip or a nighttime hike, moonlight hike. We can really enhance the experience and really capture people's imaginations by talking about those, and also by speaking to the importance of some of those protections that Crystal mentioned. Other places like campgrounds or hotels, maybe they could install an observation area where guests can go and observe the night sky. Local businesses and even non-businesses like libraries could rent out and lend out telescopes for visitors and guests to go in and look at the night skies. And of course, we can always educate folks in proper dark sky practices. And there are a lot of resources out there. And as Crystal mentioned, many of them are very simple once we actually learn what they are, and they can have a huge impact.
Great. I really appreciate that. Really recommending that tourism operators and other sort of vendors have an opportunity to show people the night skies for the first time and kind of inspire that ethic of night sky protection from their tourism experience in Utah. It's an excellent point. Well, to wrap up, I would really like for us to just think a little bit about what motivates us to enjoy and protect the night sky. I know that I personally first fell in love with dark skies when I was working as a park ranger at Timpanogos Cave National Monument, thinking a lot about darkness, right? Whether it's at night or in the cave, and how it's such a unique experience for us as humans. So I would love to hear from each of you just one favorite memory of the night sky. Let's begin with Crystal and then move over to Flint.
Yeah, as a park ranger, I was guiding a night hike, and it was on a new moon night, so it was really, really dark. And we were coming back to the visitor center, and you have to cross a big parking lot to get back to the visitor center. And when we were crossing that parking lot, a lady like, hey, what's that light on the horizon? Look in the west. And we looked over, and there's this giant triangle of light on the horizon stretching up. And I'm like, oh wow, you guys are in for a treat. This is zodiacal light. And zodiacal light is one of those things that you only see in truly dark landscapes. And basically what it is there's dust out there in space floating around from the formation of the solar system, and sunlight's catching that dust. And this is about an hour after sunset, so it's dark at that point. And it'll last for another hour. And it's just something that when you see it, it's so striking that you're just like, is there a town over there? Is that what's causing that? And you're like, no. This is like a totally natural phenomenon that you can only see in a place like this. And I think for me, that's really stuck with me as to why I kind of do what I do, and the value of that for people that come to visit, how much it means to them to see those little things, a fireball crossing the night sky. It's pretty incredible for them.
Amazing. Thank you. Flint?
Oh, I think one of my best nighttime memories is just something that happened all the time. As a boy growing up in rural Colorado, we had very dark skies, and it was something that I didn't quite recognize until I got older and moved away to larger places and realized that not everywhere could see the Milky Way. on a regular basis, just from the car ride home from the movies or from basketball practice. That the night sky is really something that is so striking and memorable once you see it, and it's something that's really noticeable once it's gone. I also just, a more recent memory is seeing the recent Neowise comet in the night sky, and what a fascinating thing that was to be able to see such a magnificent celestial event with the naked eye. And I was able to see that both, here in Davis County where I live with the naked eye amidst all the sky glow, and then as well on a recent trip back to Colorado where we were able to see it again in those same dark skies I grew up with, and just, seeing how wonderful that is and how transformative that can be. And it's something that I'm really proud that Utah is able to share with so many visitors to provide them with truly a unique experience that they can't get many places else.
So cool. Agreed. Thank you, Flint. And thanks so much to both of you, Flint Timmons and Crystal White, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with me and with the folks watching at home. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for the invite, Cassidy.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And now we'll transition to some commercial breaks and brief video interludes.
For billions of years, life on Earth has adapted to the natural rhythms of light from the sun, the moon, lightning, volcanic eruptions, bioluminescence, auroras, wildfires, and the stars and planets. The biological rhythms of life were set to the predictable patterns of light and dark from the sun and moon. Mating behaviors, foraging behaviors, and rest and recovery are linked to these patterns.
It is only within the last 200 years that artificial light at night has changed these patterns across ecosystems around the world. Life simply hasn't had time to adapt to this new change.
We're an inventive species capable of reducing our external impact on the world around us. We've proven that with our ability to create renewable energy sources. We have identified many of the issues associated with artificial light at night and have ways to mitigate those impacts as well. By directing light downward through a fully shielded fixture, we eliminate the majority of impacts coming from nighttime lighting.
Properly shielded lights also eliminate glare, making it safer for pedestrians crossing busy streets to see where they are going and allow drivers to see the roadway clearly to avoid obstacles safely.
I once drifted off to sleep at Chaco Culture National Historic Park.
As always, I tucked my rainfly under my tent so I could be prepared for rain while still watching the stars wheeling overhead. At some point I woke and saw clouds in the night sky, and I unzipped my tent to put my fly on. But when I looked out my tent, I realized it wasn't a cloud, but rather the brightest, most pristine view of the Milky Way I had ever seen. As I stared up with wide eyes, time slowed down and I felt a sense of connectedness with an ineffable vastness. What I experienced in Chaco was a sense of awe. and it's not a common experience. 99% of people in industrialized nations live under light-polluted night skies, and the Milky Way is hidden from almost 80% of North Americans. But this big, beautifully dark spot on the map, this is us. This is Utah. People come from all over the world to experience Utah's wild nature. With funding from the National Park Service and the Public Lands Initiative, our team at Utah State University and the Institute of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism will be studying dark sky tourism to state and national parks in Utah. Through this work, we'll be putting actual numbers to the economic contributions local economies see from dark sky tourism. We'll also be studying the visitor experience related to dark skies, including the experience of awe. This will allow us to help managers of parks and protected areas make science-informed decisions that contribute to the protection of transformative experiences for future generations. It'll also help us understand how to attract new visitors and keep old ones coming back. Our dark skies have always been reservoirs of ecological, social, and community well-being. Our team is excited to be able to take on this project. We're already in the planning stages and should start data collection in the next year. If you have any questions or comments, please contact either myself, Zach Miller, or Jordan Smith.
And thank you all very much for attending today's panel discussion. If you'd like to learn more about ways to get involved, be sure to check out these excellent online resources and feel free to reach out to darkskycooperative@gmail.com to contact the Colorado Plateau Dark Skies Cooperative.